Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Sprague from Persimmon Health. I am a serial entrepreneur working on healthcare technology that helps more people access better quality of care. This podcast is for the movement of innovators, entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, and thought leaders that are advancing the American healthcare system through digital health. In this podcast, we highlight real stories of innovators and enablers of digital health, their opportunities, challenges, and learnings for innovation. We'll cover topics such as startup building and fundraising, entrepreneurship, emerging technologies, and big ideas to transform healthcare. We invite you to participate in this community, share your stories, and accelerate the movement. Thank you. We have an awesome pod. Enjoy. Leon is a serial entrepreneur, inventor, speaker, and mentor within digital health. He invented the world's first FDA-cleared wrist sensor pulse ox monitor. He has 7 U.S. patents, 40 worldwide patents, was CEO and founder of a highly successful medtech and digital health company, Oxitone Medical, one of the healthcare transformers with Startup Health, and now advises founders, startups, and established companies. Today, we're going to talk about the past, present, and future of medical devices, advice for digital health entrepreneurs, and not only around business, but around how to think about business. Leon, welcome to the pod. We got to know each other over the summer when we were on a learning mission on our side for chronic disease management and medical devices and wearables. Lucky for us, you responded to a random LinkedIn reach out for us to be able to learn more. And you dropped so many insights in our conversation that we knew we had to have you on the pod right away. So thank you for coming. Maybe, Leon, if you could briefly tell us about Oxitone and anything else you're currently working on.
First of all, I'm really very glad to be here and to talk to you guys. And thank you, Chris, for the invitation to participate in your amazing podcast. It looks like it is the second time I'm here, right? We did it before once.
Not in the podcast format, but definitely in the interview format.
Yeah, I remember. Yes. It was an extremely nice experience. So about myself, I'm living in Israel today, and I did my PhD in physics, in quantum optics, quantum electronics, quantum mechanics, quantum computing, in Weizmann Institute of Science. And then I did my PhD in laser cooling, and then I decided to join startups in Israel like engineer. So I was working in many startups. I helped to develop, and it happened that most of my job was dedicated for development of medical devices and digital health. So this way I was introduced into the medical device industry that really was amazing, and I found a lot of opportunities there, a lot of things we have to do, because this industry was here in transition mode from very old. So it's interesting because together it survived very old approach. You still have very old devices, famous. At the same time, people start to use totally new device, and there is a huge vision for the future. So in 2010, I decided to launch my own company after I got a lot of experience in this area. And it was based on my invention of the world's first FDA-cleared pulse oximetry monitor. It became world's first after 7 years after invention. But I started to develop a unique device. All people were busy with heart rate monitor for wellness, and I was dedicated to develop something that is beyond just heart rate. It's a pulse oximetry, and to give people capabilities to have the very comfortable measurements without any fingertip probe that is really bulky, disturbing. And most important, we had to do it on a medical grade level. That's very difficult. That's first time in our world it happened. And I invented totally new technology. It's not totally new, it's based on the old approach, but new new placement, new configuration, new measurements. It means we try to use ulnar bone on the wrist, like very unique place where you can measure in a high accuracy level patient vital signs, much better accuracy than any other place, including fingertip. And you can compare accuracy with forehead, for example. So the main issue that bone enables to clean and to guide the signal, optical signal, in a way that we have very good signal, and still this technology opens huge capabilities with respect to or relative to conventional technology that wellness devices are using. And by the way, today only 3 medical devices receive FDA for pulse oximetry, and it looks like today Oxitone is only wrist-worn device on the market that you can buy and use.
I have one question about your Oxitone journey, because then I do want to ask about your advice for entrepreneurs that are starting their own journeys.
Yeah.
But we've talked a lot about Oxitone in context of different questions, but I'm just curious about the different stages of Oxitone from your point of view, the challenges you faced, any moments where you doubted yourself, or any moments where you knew that this was going to work. What was that journey like for you to get to that successful point?
Thank you for using Oxitone in context, because this is what it was my first company like entrepreneur, and all my experience I won through my adventure there in Oxitone. So for 12 years I was working like CEO and founder, like CEO of the Oxitone, and from their idea, from nothing, from zero, we came to commercialization, full commercialization worldwide. And recently I moved to position executive chairman. So yeah, I had a lot of experience, and we raised $12 million through my tenure like CEO, and currently we are raising the new round of investment. And I have to tell that anytime, we're struggling with many things, what we have to do. I didn't know some tricks and I would say methods how to overcome it, which I teach today to young entrepreneurs. And so I had to learn it from my mistakes. And again, I did a lot of mistakes during my time there. And what I have to say that what's important is people. The most important, most important than technology, more important than technology, anything else, people. And if you don't know how to hire people, I developed my specific questionnaire for these people. Very interesting. It could be the huge theme of the next podcast questionnaire. You will be surprised how it looks like and it works. And but people is everything. People and partners. Who are your partners and who are your managers? So this is what we have to learn before we start the company. And usually people, young entrepreneur, they didn't pay attention on this stuff. They're busy. Usually they are engineers. They're busy about how to make the product. But who makes the product? People. And if you hire the wrong people, if you don't know, it's called whole brain leadership, whole brain thinking. If you don't know people's archetype surround you, you cannot manage these people. You cannot translate between them. And you lose and you die like a company.
Right. And is there any best practice archetype to look for as an entrepreneur, or is it more like a meeting of the archetypes between the right fit of, let's say, the CEO founder, and then the right core team of archetypes, or is it company specific, or is there a certain thing that you think people should be looking for?
It's not company specific. It depends on whom you are looking for and which position.
Okay.
You can look for people for position, strategic position, for example, right? Strategy. It could be vice president of sales, vice president of marketing, chief executive officer of your company as well. It's strategic position. And you have to look for the people, something beyond the requirements that you put in this position. So people, not people should fit position. Position should fit these people. Understand? Yeah. This is strategic level. If you are talking about operational level, it's some middle manager, director or something like this. This exactly should be fitting position and experience and person, archetype. And all modalities should coincide. So it should be exact fitting. And if you're looking for somebody who sell coffee in Starbucks, what you should think about, you don't think about experience, you don't think about proficiency, you have to think about empathy and all this stuff around behavior.
Right.
So different requirements. And people itself, there is very interesting theory, again, called whole brain thinking, that gives you understanding of 4 archetypes of people and their modalities. Modalities, it means behavior processes. So it's analyzer who analyze, it's strategist, it's networker or organizer. And usually they have very much developed in one of these 4 quadrants and very small developed in another. Like, for example, if you're a visionary, you deliver vision, the real engineer doesn't understand you. Even more, he will correct you and he will fight you because he wants a number. This is what happens with entrepreneurs. They come to VC, to analyst, and say, I have the vision, I build this, I build that, in 10 years we will be billionaires. And analyst from VC says, okay, give me the numbers. No, why numbers? I understand, I feel it. No, give me the numbers. So this is what happens. And I teach I never teach, I'm a mentor. I mentor, coach a little bit entrepreneurs, not only young. I have some people in the growth stage, company in the growth stage. They sell on millions of dollars. They wanted to make 3 times bigger their sales figure. And they came to me and asked, how do I do this? Why did I stop? Why did I get to saturation? And I give him, first of all, we have to think about his personality. So I assess his personality, what stopped him. So this is how to start understanding the company from the management personality. So we discover, we formulate the problem, we discover the problem, and usually this is really the problem in personality of manager. Why company cannot grow or going to die. And if you solve this personality problem, other problems like product, market, everything else will go automatically. You have to apply some skills and apply some techniques to solve this problem in all areas of. But what I ask people, first of all, after I check personality in many dimensions, again, multidimensional approach, and understand to whom quadrant this guy is connected. I understand how to talk to him, to his level, in order to get through his unconscious brain and come to his conscious brain. Otherwise, he doesn't have the trust and he doesn't allow me to get into his conscience. I have to build the trust. I have to develop oxytocin in his brain and have methodics for this. In order to penetrate into his brain, create trust, in this case, he starts to think in the right direction. And so I have to start to talk, if this guy, organizer, drill engineer, I have to talk in numbers. He understands numbers. If this guy is networker, I have to talk from empathy and people point of view. If this guy is strategist, entrepreneur, inventor, I have to talk about vision, and so on. So I ask, where are you going to be in 5 years? So let's build backward planning. And usually 99% of people cannot do it. It's very difficult to understand, to see yourself in 5 years. So I ask, okay, you're going to build your home. What are you doing? You're going to designer, to architecture, and you build the home with all suppliers in the beginning. You have everything ready, and just then you start to build it, having all backwards. This step by step. Same here, exactly the same. You have to see yourself in 5 years. You have to define your criteria, your KPIs, what people should be around you, how much money, how much sales, everything. And this is something from exoterics, I would say. So this is not from our material world, because I was learning quantum mechanics. And I understood that everything exists already. Everything exists. You just have to choose and take it. And if you know how to select, how to choose and take it, you will succeed. You know, when you come to the taxi, you say, take me to this street. You say exactly where you're going to be, and you will be there. Mm-hmm. So this is exactly how I walk, and what I'm writing the book about it, about this approach in my experience. But it really works, because you fix the future today. And if you fix the future today, you know exactly where to go. And then you come back, so your future is 100% of what you're doing. Then you come back to 70%, then back to 50%. And all the time, you put exactly in your Excel everything what you want to have around it. Suppliers, sales, people, how to manage people, how to hire people, whom you need to hire. And this way back to the today, and then back again to the future. And all the time you should go back and forth until you have the clear understanding what to do. So even if people came to the coma, and in a year they awake, they know exactly the next step.
Right. And so I was actually one of those founders or entrepreneurs who stepped into every pitfall. I thought that I was smart and had a brilliant team. Give us a market, and we'll figure out the product and work backwards from there. So instead of analyzing a painful enough problem and talking to people enough until I had a solution, I rejected advice many times, and I failed, and luckily had just enough runway and grant money, to be frank, to actually take that advice when it was very clearly not working alone, pivot, and then make something successful. And so I guess it allowed me, or as they say, when a student is ready, a teacher arrives, to be humbled, so I would listen to something, not just hear what people were saying. And I think it's interesting that in the book that you're working on, you're talking about trying to resonate and really get into, or the differentiation between the conscious and the subconscious. And one of my questions coming in here was, how can you get people like me to listen without being humbled? And I think I've heard one part of that response for you, which is speaking their language. Right. So speak in terms of vision, speak in terms of customer, speak in terms of how they naturally think. Maybe that's one. And I'm wondering, what more, I don't know, what more techniques you use, or what more observations you have about the entrepreneurs that you mentor in that regard.
I can tell you that about 90% of people I'm working with, they reject in the beginning they reject any help. They think they understand everything. Then I give them some questionnaire and they understand that no, they don't know everything. But let's see how our brain works. Yeah? So it's like a cup. Yeah? Oh, maybe it's different. Yeah, like a cup. You see. So see, if simplify, I'm not very good artist, so it's divided on three areas. Here is your conscience, very small area. And why you use your conscience? Your idea do not come from your conscience. It comes from unconscious. Conscience just you use it to take attention, to pay attention on something important, and then you leave to decide to your unconscious. So many decisions, 100% of decisions you are doing from your unconscious, and 100 wrong decisions you are doing from your conscience. Interesting, right? Something unusual. And here you have very interesting place, something between conscious and unconscious. This is what talk to conscious. You don't have any access to unconscious. This place talk to unconscious. You cannot get access there. You don't know what happens. And if you don't know what happens, you have a huge anxiety. That's why you have emotions. And emotions are growing if you don't know what happens, because you cannot access to this unconscious. It's like black box for everybody. Who can get there? Who ask you questions. So if I come from the side, I come from here. I ask you questions, and your this place decide where to take you to the conscious or take you to unconscious. It's like a lion that keep your conscience, keep out of their noise. And noise, it's your interpretation of noise. It could be very important advice, but for your unconscious interpret this like a noise. You don't want to do it. It's very important to learn how to identify on this level all these things through some emotions. People start from identifying these emotions. So if you come to mentor like me, I start to ask meaningful questions that take me here and here as well, and let me to get into all levels of your brain, identify what happens, build the trust. You let me in, and you understand about yourself amazing things, and some people don't like it because they're afraid. They're afraid to understand themselves. People, by the way, do not afraid to die. They're afraid to understand themselves after they die. So most of the things, most of the time, people afraid to understand themselves. And this is what, because they all have bias. And this is what mentor is doing. How mental health penetrate into your brain and train your brain for success.
Yeah, and I think that's really a unique approach, Leon, and way of looking at it. And one observation that we've had working with many entrepreneurs on the spectrum of first time to serial entrepreneur is that in general, the serial entrepreneurs have failed before, and they understand that that is a real possibility, and they remember the pain of that failure, and so they seek to figure out where they're failing in any of their mental models, conscious or unconscious, first and foremost. But then we speak with first-time entrepreneurs, and they're afraid of failure, right? Because they've built up this vision for themselves and their product that they're going to be right, and that wrong, failing is a failure mode instead of a learning and improvement mode. So
Right.
I'm curious, when you're mentoring first-time entrepreneurs versus seasoned entrepreneurs, if you've observed differences in how you like to speak with them.
Oh, definitely. Seasoned entrepreneurs, they are looking for development on specific areas where they don't have enough experience.
Mm-hmm.
But again, some people became entrepreneurs and didn't learn anything. So we can identify this immediately. In this case, I say usually, let's go back to the first class of the school. So if I identify that they didn't get through this identification, self-identification, and they still have anxiety, the fear of uncertainty. And by the way, usually everything what you afraid happens. Everything what you're afraid finally happens. Everything what you don't like finally happens. So one of the first things I'm trying to remove from their brain, fear. Because if they have fear, it will happen. So for well-developed entrepreneurs who are working in very specific areas where I can help them with my experience. So it's not mentor-mentee relationships. It's just overlapping our knowledge and discussion and understanding together. So I learn a lot from these people by myself as well. And it's totally opposite to young entrepreneurs who do not trust, who are like any young people, think they know everything. And as we said, there is a big difference between know everything and think they know something. So usually if people tell me something, I ask them, ask yourself, how do I know? Or how does he know who told you this? Ask yourself, get into this point. Ask you from here, ask yourself, how do I know? Ask this part of brain, and you will recognize immediately that you don't know. So there is a difference between mental understanding of our world and mental learning and existential learning. And to get to existential level of what you know, you get there only through the experience. You cannot get it through learning. That's why we have to make homework, we have to go through experience. In this way, we create new neurons in our brain, chains, and we fix our knowledge on existential level after that. But before, you have to learn on mental level. And mentee and coacher help people to bring things they learn on mental level to existential level down through this line.
Right. And so in May, you began a new role as the official mentor for the Israel Export Institute. What is your charter in terms of being an official mentor? Is it delving into the thinking and mental processes? Is it more of the industry expert advice and filling in gaps that they don't have? Or you tell me.
Yeah, it's everything together. Okay. In the beginning, I make 1 hour a 1 hour meeting to understand the people, to understand how they think, not about company, not about product, about people themselves I'm dealing with. We have to create trust. If there is no trust, they won't get it. So it will be some very superficial meeting, and that's all. So we have to discover who they are, where they are, why they are doing this and created this company. So we go through all things. What absent in their life? What their personal, and people cannot answer it. 99% of people cannot answer it. What their personal mission? Why they created this company at all? They say, okay, I want to do exit, I want to do money. Finally, you come to understanding, you that they did it because they wanted to realize themselves, because they have problems to realize themselves in different places or in family, or they want to prove something to somebody. Totally opposite to what they thought by themselves they started this company. And when they realize it, they, first of all, trust is growing, and they became they liking, because wow, I got it. I understand. This is why I am doing this. So they got a lot of motivation to continue to do this, or maybe to stop because they found that, okay, the reason wasn't so much what I'm going to do. Maybe I close it, but it didn't happen. Usually it motivates people. And people start to think how to move forward. And then we come to backward planning. And then we focus on things they cannot do. And sometimes even they're doing some rebranding. One of their example, one physician, 75 years old, approached me and said, help me to raise money. My first idea was to tell him, no, thank you, because at 75 years old, no way you will raise money. No way. And, but we start to talk, very interesting technology. This guy, huge experience, very interesting guy. And I told him, look, you have to leverage your experience, everything what you did and succeeded in your life, because you had somehow leverage. You cannot succeed without leverage in any what you're doing. And I told him, your leverage, not what you have to go and ask money by yourself. You have partners, younger partners. They can do this. But you lose your leverage when by yourself you go and ask your money. People don't want to talk to you. You have to rebrand yourself. You have to become expert, an advisor for these young guys, and send them to raise money and be in any meeting and walk and show your experience like you great advisor who can help this company to grow. He said, wow, I didn't think about it. Yeah, you understand? So this is just one example. A lot of examples like these, but usually all examples end point of all these examples is to rebrand, personal rebranding and company rebranding. Because if everything is okay, they don't come to me. They come to me, it happens, something happens. But when I ask, how are you doing? The answer, I'm okay. So I ask, why are you here?
Right. Yeah, that's funny. I'm just remembering all these conversations from my founding days. Default response from anybody building a startup in the Valley at the time was, oh, we're killing it. But then you ask one question, and then everyone answers in, okay, how we're not killing it. But and I think you've hit on something between mentorship and mentees is just building that trust and authenticity. I remember the feeling as an entrepreneur of wanting to, defend what we had done so far, even though some of the things were not defensible in terms of the traction and actual adoption, and hence I wasn't open. And what we were describing sounded very much to me like therapy, almost of indoctrinating into the trust and really getting to know someone. So that way they're open to receiving in anything that you would collaborate around, versus being closed off and just checking the box through the hour long. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, right. And I can tell you, I didn't think at all I can be some kind of psychologist, business psychologist, I would say, because my place in 4 quadrants of whole brain thinking, exactly in a place where Steve Jobs and other entrepreneurs, so somewhere between strategist and analyst. because I was physician and strategist. I don't like step-by-step to implement, and I was quite cold in interconnections, in networking, quite cold. I couldn't understand people. And during my venture, during my entrepreneurial life, I came to understanding that I have to learn it. Otherwise, I cannot make a deal. If I don't understand people, I cannot make a deal. So I start to learn negotiations. One, negotiations two, different approaches. And I start to learn psychology, philosophy. And finally, I extended my brain to the networking, that is culture, influence, relationships, communication, in a way, and I check myself, exactly same level like analyze and strategy. But still, I don't like to go step by step and to be a drill engineer. For this, I hire people. And I'm not sure I will succeed there because it's boring. But all other quadrants today, I'm okay with this.
Yeah, and I'm thinking back to something that you had mentioned about the different archetypes of people and in building a team and what you're looking for different pieces. And when you were describing that, it kind of reminded me of like some certain sporting events, sports teams, and how different coaches have various philosophies of building a team. Like some coaches they have their system and they only look for people that will exactly fit the system and their role. But generally, the best coaches are the ones that identify the truly great people that are going to be on their team, and they make that the system, or they make space for those people, like let's say at a strategic level, as you were talking around. And I think that's one of the more, fascinating forks in the road for different types of companies. Is the company as a whole fitting one person or a small group of people's mental model about what everyone should be doing and fitting together? Or is it growing in terms of really talented people and figuring out how to make them maximally productive together and do great things? I don't know if you have any more comments on that, but that's what I was thinking of when you were talking through how to build teams and whether positions should fit the role or the person should be a perfect fit for the position.
Yeah, and one of the main things what you have when you build your team, you have to know how they grow. It's very important because, for example, you are looking for sales manager, and you knew immediately, you recognize that this sales manager or a candidate was playing music, piano for 7 years in a school, never played sport or something like this. I would never take such a guy on sales position because he cannot push things forward. But it could be great analyst because he has some patience to play 7 years music in musical school, So he's drill engineer, he's analyst, but he's not sales manager. So this is very important. Or, for example, people who grow in a family of lawyers, for example, and became physicists. This is my case.
Okay.
And you see, there's a cat here, and became a physicist. So it's my case. So what is it? It's rebellion. I wouldn't take on position doing something for myself, somebody like myself, because I'm rebellion. Yeah, I don't follow their rules, because if my parents lawyers, I should be lawyer, because everything is open for me. It's how to call it. So dynasty, or how to call it correctly? Yeah. So everything. So I can have heritage, but I decided not to do it and get in totally new position because something I didn't like in their life. So you have to watch these, identify these through some questions. Who are they people? Because they can hide themselves, and there are specific methodics in the market that you can identify these guys and understand if they fit your position or not.
Right. Yeah, and I think, something we've observed, and I think you're also touching around, is using people for their strengths, not trying to necessarily work around all of their weaknesses and make them a fit. For example, for someone who's not natural as a sales manager, just don't make them a sales manager, right? And try to work on closing those gaps, but they may have these brilliant analytical qualities, and if you just purpose them for how they organically look at the world, then maybe it would be more successful.
Yeah, in this case, you have to identify his brain position, his modality, his history, and to know exactly whom you are looking for. This is the most important because it's very difficult to understand whom you're looking for. Because what you have, if you go to buy something, if you go to look for people, you go to HR companies, you write something usual. 1 second. You write something usual, and you cannot make the difference between different requirements. So you want a guy who has such experience, has education, communication, networker, analyst, all together, and everything is same. How you can recognize whom you are looking for? So you start to receive a lot of noise. A lot of people who do not fit your position, what you're looking for, and to me, I didn't meet such specific specific CV in my life, which could a priori identify exactly whom I am looking for from a psychological point of view. Psychology point of view. That's a problem. So this is what I help people as well. So I give them some questionnaire, what to ask, and it changed their mind and change their development because they hire right people who bring the company to success.
Right. And can you talk a little bit about the book you're working on? Is it kind of the crystallization and synthesis of a lot of these teachings and practices and questions that maybe someone can ask themselves as they're reading through? Or what is the scope of the book that you're writing?
Okay, it's interesting because I am writing about future. So the book starts from the future, from my morning in 5 years.
Okay.
Like it happens today, and people could not recognize in the beginning that this is the future. This is exactly totally virtual future that happens today. And then slowly I get back to today. So I answer the questions. Why? All the time I answer the question why I came to this stage. So why I came to this stage which I described in 5 years, in 4 years, in 3 years. You know, there are two directions, two vectors. One vector called why, what happened before and why I came to this stage and what I have to do and have to have in order to come to this stage. And another, so what? Or so that, or so what? So if I'm in this stage, and when you come back, then come again forward, You have to answer these questions. So it should be consistent. When you go back from the future, you answer question why. And when you go forward to the future, you have to answer the question so what. And again, it should be consistent. And this is all book about this. So like skeleton of this book, consistency of these two questions. And we all the time we jump from one question to another to explain people why it happens, what happens, and how to manage and how to control this in the beginning.
Right. Yeah, that's fascinating, Leon. And it's interesting as we've been working with startups. I mean, what you're talking about as far as working backwards with entrepreneurs and getting the insights into the steps that they have to take forward to arrive at that vision, if they have it, 5 years from now. What we've also found useful, which you may well go into, is kind of the reverse question, but also working backwards. So the pre-mortem, right? So if in 5 years the company has died and not been successful at all, what are the reasons that we would have died, right? Why would we have failed? And in forcing people into that mindset of you may be able to fail, you may not know everything. And this is just a creative exercise for you to put down every reason you can think of that your vision is not going to work out. And then we've defined those pitfalls that we need to avoid or research up front and prioritize. I'm wondering how much you think about that too in your mentorship, which is not just what needs to go right to hit this vision, but then also what can't go wrong to hit a person's vision.
Yeah, very good question. I don't touch it.
Okay.
I don't want to talk about failure with my mentees at all, because I talk not from point of teaching. I ask questions, then I conclude, and then I give feedback to them. So we don't think about what won't happen. We think about what will happen. And when I see that his mental position leads to possible failure, I ask questions that correcting questions that correct his position, and he understands himself that it will bring him to the failure, and understand himself how to correct. So I give him some tools to correct himself based on questions I ask him.
Got it. Okay.
So I prefer not to talk about failures. Yeah, mistakes sometimes. If I don't know. Sometimes I fail to teach. It happens. It's true, because sometimes people so much not follow. That sometimes, and I consider this like my failure, and I'm not working with this guy anymore because he created my failures. It means he is not good for me. He is not positive for me, and I don't want to lose my ability to be positive and to teach. So I try to remove such toxic people from around.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe if we could use that for, I do have a last question for you, Leon, which is right now, a lot of people see healthcare in the US as in a failure mode, rife with misaligned incentives and highest spend for the lowest quality of care of peer countries. I'm wondering, what is your take on that? And then what is in your crystal ball or your or even a microcosm of medical devices, what is that positive looking step by step that will advance healthcare in the US?
It's a very difficult question, because I think even famous key opinion leaders do not know this answer. They try. All people try. But what give me some I don't know how to say, give me some chance. I can give some chance to these, that it's a open market, and people try to find themselves in this market. They try to innovate. So it looks like it's a numbers game. At some point, it will be so many innovations that it will just go through all their paved road that is really was paved by wrong things, maybe good things 100 years ago, but finally that brought us to the wrong situation. And I think it's only about freedom of innovate, freedom of operation, little bit control by the government to watch, like a conscience. A conscience, just pay attention and guide the development, but to give their development of innovation, free development of innovation, and free market for this, and the best will win, and finally will change the status quo. But it will be very difficult, and what I see, it needs another generation to have it, because when I work with physicians about 50, 60, they are very much more difficult to move to something new, or they get to move, but because of different reasoning, money or something like this. And the new physicians, young physicians, if you just check telemedicine companies, you will see that in the board you will find old professors, old physicians. What they do in the board, I don't know, just because of name. But who is working really in place? It's young physicians between 30, 40 or till 50 who gonna bring or also have some side gig, but at the same time to grow like physicians in a new type of, I even could say civilization, because it's really, we come to new civilization, new health economics. And this is what happen, but it needs at least one generation of physicians to come to this place.
Right. Yeah, gosh, and that seems so far away compared to a lot of the challenges.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
20, 30 years when all these big numbers will break down the old system.
Right. Yeah, it may have to completely fail. Yeah.
But if you will have a single payer, like in other countries, it will take much more time because you don't have freedom of innovate in this case.
Right. Gosh, makes sense, Leon. And I guess my last question is, do you have any advice that you haven't been able to give yet for entrepreneurs within digital health specifically? Either failure modes to watch out for, or what you wish you would have told yourself?
Only one advice: hire mentors from the beginning.
Okay.
This is very important, because in this case you don't have to learn mistakes by yourself. You can learn mistakes from somebody who did it already, could teach you how to avoid it. And find good mentor, not mentor teacher, mentor trust, whom you can trust and who motivate you. Motivational mentor motivate you to think in the right way and to do things in the right way. So find mentor.
Right.
This is I think this is most important thing that young entrepreneurs should do.
That makes sense. Yes, and I think upon reflection, that was one of my challenges. Is I had mentors who were telling me what to do, right? Not helping me improve my thought process to the point that I was thinking of what to do. And of course, me being bullheaded as a first-time founder, thought that nobody's going to tell me what to do. I'm the one who invented this thing. It's the right thing, right? And
this is what we were talking about. unconscious or existential thinking and thinking by their cortex. So they teach you, they think by cortex, they lose. If they ask you and really help you to think by yourself, it happens in unconscious level, in existential level.
Right. Well, thank you, Leon. I think that differentiation is fascinating and in retrospect, accurate. I can't wait to read more of your thoughts as they're synthesized into the book. And I really appreciate your time on this podcast. You've been very generous for many conversations now, and appreciate your expertise, guidance, and yes, asking the right questions.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you, Bimal. I'm really happy to talk to you guys.
Thanks for listening to this podcast and being a part of this movement. This podcast is brought to you by Persimmon Health, an offering by Leapfrog Technology that's purpose-built to help innovators imagine, build, and scale digital health products. We're passionate about fixing healthcare and have worked on over 50 digital health products. If you want to share your story or want to work together, please shoot an email to hello@persimmonhealth.com. Thank you once again, and I look forward to seeing you on the next podcast.